Okay, ever thought about what blood really represents? I mean, beyond the obvious, like, it keeps us alive, right? What if I told you that in the ancient world, blood held, like, profound spiritual significance?
Well, it's true, and we can see this clearly in Leviticus 17, a chapter in the Bible that dives deep into the sanctity of blood and the importance of proper sacrifice.
Okay, so we're going deep into biblical territory here. But trust me, this is about way more than just ancient rituals. We're going to uncover some surprisingly relevant wisdom that connects to how we live today.
Absolutely. So in Leviticus 17, we have God instructing Moses to pass along some specific laws to Aaron, his sons, and all the Israelites. And what's fascinating is that these laws aren't just for priests, they apply to the entire community. It's about establishing a shared understanding of the sacredness of blood and the proper way to approach worship.
So it's like setting community standards almost. What are some of the key messages here?
The core message is pretty clear. Respect the sanctity of blood and follow these guidelines for sacrifice. One of the biggest points is that sacrificing animals outside of the designated place, the tabernacle, is strictly forbidden.
Why so strict about location? What's the big deal?
This really emphasizes the importance of a centralized system of worship and actively rejecting practices that could lead to idolatry. It's about unity, following a shared set of beliefs and practices.
I see. It's like a way to ensure everyone is on the same page spiritually, avoiding anything that might cause division or stray from their core beliefs. So how does the idea of blood representing life fit into all of this?
That's where it gets really interesting. The ancient Israelites viewed blood as sacred because it symbolized the very essence of a creature's life. It's about recognizing the inherent value in all living things.
I get that. It's a deep respect for life itself, not just human life, but all forms of life. And it makes you think about our relationship with the environment and all the creatures we share this planet with.
Right. And using blood for atonement rituals further emphasizes its power. It's not just a physical substance. It carries profound spiritual significance, symbolizing reconciliation and forgiveness.
Okay, so we're talking about respecting life, the importance of sincere worship, and following community standards. But how does any of this ancient wisdom apply to our modern lives? I mean, we're not exactly building tabernacles in our backyards.
That's the beauty of it, though. These ancient ideas are surprisingly relevant. The reverence for blood, for example, can be seen as a call for sustainability and the ethical treatment of animals. It's about being responsible stewards of our planet and all its
I
inhabitants.
see what you're saying. It's like a call to action for modern environmentalism and animal rights. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all living things and the need to protect them.
And the emphasis on sincere worship back then is like a reminder today to be authentic in our beliefs and actions. Whether it's religion, meditation, or any other practice, it's about having genuine intent, not just going through the motions.
That's such a powerful message. It's about bringing mindfulness and authenticity to everything we do, aligning our actions with our core values. But what about all those rules about unauthorized sacrifices? What can we learn from that?
Well, even those rules offer valuable insights. They remind us to think carefully about our choices and ensure our actions align with our principles and the greater good.
It's like a reminder to pause and consider the potential consequences of our decisions, both for ourselves and our communities. We can't just act impulsively or selfishly. We have to consider the bigger picture. This is getting really interesting.
It really is. And, Leviticus doesn't just talk about sacrifices in a general sense. It gets very specific about how to handle blood, especially when it comes to hunting.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember reading about that. It talks about pouring out the blood of hunted animals and covering it with dust. Why such a specific ritual?
It circles back to that central idea we've been talking about blood as a symbol of life. Pouring it out and covering it is a way of acknowledging the life that was taken and treating it with respect, even in a situation where taking an animal's life is necessary for survival.
It's like a way of honoring the animal and recognizing that taking its life is not something to be taken lightly.
Exactly. And it also connects back to the idea of being responsible stewards of all life on Earth. It's a reminder that even when we take, we should do so with reverence and a sense of responsibility.
So it's not just about avoiding unnecessary killing. It's about how we approach the act itself,
Hmm.
even when it's for a necessary purpose.
Right. And this respect for life isn't limited to animals that are hunted for food. Leviticus 17 also addresses the consumption of animals that have died naturally or been torn by wild beasts.
Yeah, it says that anyone who eats those animals has to go through a whole purification process, washing their clothes, bathing, and remaining unclean until evening, What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, remember, this was a time long before refrigeration and modern food safety practices. These rituals had practical implications for health and hygiene, helping to prevent the spread of disease.
That makes sense. It's easy to forget that these ancient laws often had very practical purposes alongside their spiritual significance.
Absolutely. And, taken together, all these guidelines about blood and sacrifice paint a vivid picture of a society deeply concerned with respecting life, maintaining purity, and ensuring that all actions were carried out with the proper intent and in accordance with divine law.
It's like they were trying to create a holistic system of ethics, a way of living that recognized the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of living in harmony with both the spiritual and the physical world.
Precisely. And while we might not follow these exact rituals today, the underlying principles are still incredibly relevant. We still grapple with questions about how to balance our needs with the needs of the planet, how to live ethically in a complex world, and how to find meaning and purpose in our lives.
So if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, what can we take away from Leviticus 17 that's relevant to our lives today? Maybe besides those cool insights about environmentalism and authenticity that we talked about earlier, what else is there?
Well, on a fundamental level, it reminds us that even seemingly ancient and obscure religious texts can offer surprisingly relevant insights into how we live today. It encourages us to look beyond the surface and consider the deeper meanings and principles that might be hidden within.
It's like a reminder that wisdom can come from unexpected sources, and that even traditions that seem very different from our own can still have something valuable to teach us.
Exactly. And beyond that, it invites us to think about the rituals and practices in our own lives, whether they're religious, cultural, or personal. What deeper meanings might they hold? How do they shape our values and actions?
It's a challenge to be more mindful, to really examine the things we do and the beliefs we hold, and to ask ourselves if they are truly in alignment with our deepest values and aspirations. It's about living with intention.
Precisely. And to be mindful of the impact our choices have, not just on ourselves, but on our communities and the world around us. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have ripple effects.
What's really striking to me is how Leviticus 17 manages to address both the individual and the communal aspects of responsible living. It's not just about personal piety, it's about creating a society that values life, justice, and respect for the sacred.
That's a great observation, and it raises an important question. How can we apply these principles of reverence for life, authentic worship, and communal responsibility to address the challenges facing our world today?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we take these ancient ideas and translate them into action, into real change that makes a difference?
Yeah, it really does feel like Leviticus 17 is throwing down a challenge, daring us to connect those ancient ideas to the problems we face today and figure out how to live up to its timeless wisdom. It is, and I think that's what makes exploring these ancient texts so exciting. We discover this enduring power of their messages and find new ways to apply them to our modern lives. It's a journey of discovery, both personal and collective.
This whole deep dive has been incredibly insightful. I feel like I have a completely new understanding of the depth and relevance of Leviticus 17.
It's been a fascinating exploration, hasn't it? And, as we wrap up, I keep coming back to that idea of blood as a symbol of life. It makes you wonder what other everyday things might hold deeper meanings than we realize.
That's such a great question to leave our listeners with. It reminds us that there's always more to learn, always deeper layers of meaning to uncover, even in the things we encounter every single day.
It's all about being open to those connections, to seeing that timeless wisdom reflected in the world around us.
So, to everyone listening, here's your challenge. Next time you encounter something that seems ordinary or mundane, take a moment to pause and consider its deeper significance. You might be surprised at what you discover. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Leviticus 17. We'll see you next time.